I'm Gahl Sasson'un. I'm here at Miboso Wellbeings, and let's look deeper into 2023. The way I think will be the best for you guys to benefit from our meeting here is to first of all talk about the general trend of the year. We'll just go throughout the year and I will tell you certain dates, certain moments where you have to be a little bit more careful or times that things can flow much better. And then we can look at major aspects of the year and talk a little bit about what each sign might experience. So first of all, 2023, as the name tells you, is associated with number 7. So in numerology, 2023 it adds up to 7. It's reduced into 7, and 7 is a very holy number. If you look at many different traditions, we have the 7 sacraments, the 7 chakras, the 7 days of the week, the 7 seas, the 7 hills of Constantinople, the 7 hills of Rome, the 7 hills of Istanbul. You see that 7 repeats itself. Even the Snow White and the 7 dwarfs. 7 is associated with a lucky number in Kabbalah. It's associated with eternity, things that repeat themselves and create expansion, especially around art, design, relationships. So 7 is a great number. For example, when you go to Mecca, you go 7 times around the Kaaba. If you go to Tibet, they go 7 times around the Holy Mountain. In Jewish weddings, the wife is asked to go 7 times around the husband. And I know a lot of women don't like that, but I always tell women, you know what, and maybe it's a metaphor, because men usually tend to be a little bit more closed. They have 7 chakras. So you know how Jericho, you had to go 7 times around the walls of Jericho for them to fall down. Maybe it's kind of a message that the wife has to go 7 times, 1 for each chakra, to break down the walls that separate her from her lover. But the idea is that 7 repeats itself. Even if you think about franchising, like James Bond, it doesn't really exist. But if you think about it, if it would have been called 006, 005, maybe it haven't repeated itself so much. But 007 means that that's why we have more and more James Bonds coming all the time. Because 7, whenever you attach 7 to, and if you have a business, for example, you can put 7 there. You can add 7, even if you have 7 in your phone numbers, in your address. This is representing repetition. So 7 for 2023, we're blessed about that. We need some blessing because the year is very, very tough. There is a great deal of transition happening above us. And as you know, astrology is all about as above, so below. Whatever is happening up there is also reflected down here. Whatever is happening inside is reflecting outside. So the idea is that a lot of planets are moving different signs this year. We're going to have Saturn once in 30 years. It's moving into Pisces. You have Pluto once in 250 years, it's moving into Aquarius. We have the North Node, every year and a half it moves a different sign. It's moving a sign this year. We have Jupiter moving a sign this year. There's a lot of planets that are moving houses. It's almost as if they're packing and they're changing their address. And the same way is happening to us down here. We're in a period where we're going to change quite a lot of things in our life. That's why this year is some kind of a year of a bridge. We're crossing a bridge. So let's go month by month and see what's going on. So first of all, now in January, maybe you're seeing it in February, the idea is that between February 24, thank God we're over it now, until April 20th is a great time because everything is flowing at least up there. That means that there is no retrogrades, there's no eclipses, the planets are open. So if you're trying to create projects, to initiate them, right now is actually a great time up until April 20th. The only caveat is that in March we have some changes. But before that, March 13 to 15, remember it's right around Valentine's, great time for romance. It happens to be like that. Neptune and Venus are coming together in Pisces. That is very rare because Neptune takes 185 years to go around the sun and takes time to come back to Pisces. We're going to have great energy, especially around romance, creativity. The only problem is deception and illusion. So don't sign anything if you can avoid 13th to 15th of February. But that time is great for creativity, mysticism, even what you guys are doing here with the well-being. This is a great time to come here and meditate or do anything that you can with healing. So remember, February 13, 15, very auspicious time for that. Even February 2021, we have a new moon in Pisces, also great energy. We move to March, things are getting a little bit more complicated because Saturn is moving from Aquarius to Pisces. Saturn has been in Aquarius since the beginning of the pandemic, and it's always good to look back at cycles because astrology is not about the future. Astrology is about understanding the patterns that happened in the past, recognizing where we are now, and deciding and creating our own future guided by the stars. It's not about fate only. Astrology is the wedding, it's the daughter of fate and free will. We always have a choice. We always have the power to decide what are we going to do about situation. The same way that you have a choice. Now it's winter, you might decide, I don't want to travel in winter. Why not? You can have still beautiful vacations. You just take a coat and you take an umbrella. You can still enjoy places like London, even if it's raining all the time. So the idea in astrology is giving you the tools to deal with whatever is happening up there and affecting us or influencing us or reflected down here with us. So March 8th, Saturn is moving from Aquarius to Pisces. It moved into Aquarius in March of 2020, and I don't have to tell you a lot what happened in March 2020. We all went into lockdown. Everything changed around our ability to work, our connection to people. We were isolated. That's precisely what Saturn, restriction, focus, transition, rectification in Aquarius, which is communities, people, groups, and science. Think about all the advancement we had because of the vaccines. And now they're talking about using the same technology of the vaccines that we developed in the last 3 years to help us with cancer and other problems that we have. In fact, there's a beautiful series that works with Saturn. If you look at the last time Saturn was in Aquarius, which was the 1991-92, that's when the first files were sent in the internet. Internet is ruled by Aquarius. And now, when the pandemic happened, we use this same technology, internet, to help us survive, basically. Without internet, we wouldn't be able to work from home. So Saturn was in Aquarius, changing the way we look at communities, look at people, look at how we deal with science and technology, what we deal with freedom. Think about how much freedom was taken away from us, in a sense. And now Saturn is ready to say, okay, guys, you've learned everything about Aquarius. Now it's time to teach you about Pisces. And Saturn is going to move in March 8th into Pisces until February 2026. So we have 3 years to understand what Pisces is all about. Now, for you guys working here with well-being, it's great news because Saturn is practicality, grounding energy. What is Pisces? Mysticism, intuition, healing, poetry, dance, movement. It's a very Sufi sign, you can say. And what's happening for us in the next 3 years is if you are dealing with mysticism and you are open to meditation, Saturn is going to help you ground that energy and make changes. One of the things that I really recommend is creative visualization, because imagination, visualization is ruled by Pisces. Saturn, like we saw before with Aquarius, is trying to fix you and force you to come to terms with it and use discipline, persistence, endurance, plan, which is all Saturn, in the realm of Pisces, which is imagination, poetry, dance, movement, meditation, yoga, everything that has to do also with photography, cinematography. You know, it's almost as if we're all going to become Alice in Wonderland and going through the rabbit hole into the Wonderland. You know, so you can find your Wonderland in the next 3 years. The thing is that when Saturn moves a sign, it creates a little bit of a disturbance. And also, it's like everything, the dark side. What is dark side? Ignorance. So people who are ignorant are going to take Saturn in Pisces into a really bad place. For example, if you look at history and what happened before, Saturn in Pisces always represents fanaticism. You can call it religiosity or toxicity of religiosity, something that takes fanaticism, makes everybody a little bit more crazy about their faith, about their religion, about what they believe in. Because Pisces is faith, and that's great. But if Saturn is there, sometimes people who are ignorant can take it to the wrong places. Also, Pisces is dependency, codependency, addictions. So you have to really be careful of any kind of addictions or lack of boundaries between you and partners, between you and alcohol, between you and your work even, between you and past addiction. So there could be a lot of relapses. So anything to do with drugs, alcohol, workaholism, anything with ism at the end is very, very dangerous in the next 3 years. So if you know that you have a tendency for too much sugar, this is a great time to break away from sugar. A tendency to medicate yourself with carbs, be extra careful, start doing more physical activity, more dancing, for example, more movement. Martial arts would be great in the next 3 years. And also, places like Taiwan, for example, places that are by water are going to have a little bit more difficulties. If you look historically, when Saturn was in Pisces, it's always when Taiwan had problems with China, just an example. It's always the place where people start acting out in a fanatical way. So again, it doesn't matter what's happening in the world, you have to fix yourself first. So Saturn in Pisces, make sure that you are putting boundaries, Saturn, around your Piscean energy, which is your faith, your belief, and even your imagination. Not in a bad way, but in a way to ground it, in a way to be present. The other thing that's happening in March, because March is a very, very intense time, is Pluto. Pluto, in the end of March, is moving from Capricorn into Aquarius. Now, that's a big, big deal, because that happened last time that Pluto moved a sign was 2008. I don't have to tell you a lot what happened in 2008. It was the Great Recession. And right when Pluto, what is Pluto? Pluto is, in Latin, Pluto is power. It's riches. You know, when you have a country that is ruled by rich people, we call it plutocracy, right? So the idea is that Pluto is everything that comes to us from the earth. Because if you think about gold and diamonds and petroleum and coal and rare earth that we use to activate all our machines, you know, food, everything comes from the earth. So Pluto, the lord of the earth in the Roman tradition, Hades in the Greek tradition, represents the riches of the earth. That's good. But when Pluto is moving into a sign, it starts changing the way we look at finance or riches in connection to that archetype. So when Pluto moved into Capricorn, it was a big deal because all the way that finance moved before was starting to change. All the negativity that was going on started bubbling up. So whenever Pluto moves to a new sign, there is changes in the economy. Sometimes there is recessions, as we saw last time. And even this year could be difficult financially. So we have to be very conservative with the way we look at money. Last time Pluto was in Aquarius, for example, was the French Revolution. The American Constitution was written. But again, Pluto is moving into Aquarius and we're entering the age of Aquarius. So this is the first time in 26,000 years that Pluto is in Aquarius when we enter the age of Aquarius. And it's going to be entering Aquarius, but going back and forth because it's a slow planet between Aquarius and Capricorn, Aquarius and Capricorn. That's why in the world and even in politics, you're going to see a lot of transitions happening because when Pluto is in Capricorn, it's more conservative. Pluto in Aquarius, it's more revolutionary. So from now until June, from March until June, Pluto is going to be in Aquarius. Then it's going to move back into Capricorn. Then it's going to move back into Aquarius. Then it's going to move back into Capricorn. Then it's going to move back to Aquarius. And then from 2024, stay there for until 2044. So for like 20 years. So it means that we're now going to have a time of fluctuation. And again, forget about other people or the world. Think about yourself. It means that you're going back and forth between fear, that's Capricorn, to the need for freedom. And be careful not to be extreme with your fear and extreme with your need for freedom. There's always a need for balance, especially when Pluto is back and forth between different signs. But the idea is that we are moving towards an age of opening to science, to technology, to democracy. These are the things that Aquarius rules. So Saturn was fixing Aquarius for 3 years. Now Pluto is going to move and transform our attitude toward Aquarius. Again, Aquarius is people, and in the American Constitution, the first line is, "We the people." When was it written? Pluto in Aquarius. Think about the motto and the slogans of the French Revolution: liberty, freedom. That's precisely Pluto in Aquarius. So definitely we are moving towards an age of transition and changes. Then comes April. In April 20th, things are starting to shift. We have an eclipse. And we have Mercury retrograde that's going to last all the way up until middle of May. So that period is very full of tension. So I'm not saying it's a bad time, you should hide at home. No, because eclipses, whenever they come, they push things forward. So if you know that you have projects that you want to achieve, definitely start, like surfers, pedal before the wave comes. And that means you have to move forward a lot of projects in the beginning of April. So the big swell of energy coming April 20th, the new moon, the even retrograde, can push it forward. Don't start on April 20th, start a little bit before. April 20th, May 5, that period is the period of the eclipse. Also, we're going to have October 14, 28. These are the times where things are moving much faster. And it is a time that generates some kind of fear, but also it can lead you forward. So the idea is, if you're moving in the right direction, the eclipses kick you forward faster to get there. If you're lost, well, the eclipses are going to kick you to even get lost more. So be extra careful around that time to have a sense of direction. Then from May 16, 17, it's safe to start working on your projects again. No retrogrades, no eclipses that are significant. But in July 22nd until September 5, we have Venus retrograding. That's the worst time to get married, and don't get freaked out if you have to get married and it's too late to change. No worries. What you can do is sign the papers in the end of May, beginning of June. That's why you're listening to this right now, right? So you can have some insights. So even if you're invited to a wedding, don't make a big deal of it and say you shouldn't get married back then. Give them good suggestion instead of scaring them. But the idea is that it's not a good time to start new relationships or to sign partnership agreements if you can avoid, or get married. Not a good time to make big purchases. But when Venus is retrograde, like Mercury retrograde, it's okay to start things that you started in the before and failed to achieve. So it's kind of a second chance. So whenever you have Venus retrograde, it's a good time to go back to projects in art or even in finance that you failed to do and to try again. Also, it's a great time for refinance, and I tried it. I tested it myself. Because Venus retrograde, it's a great time to not ask for a loan for the first time, but to refinance something that you've already got a loan for in the past. The reason why is because a lot of banks are making mistakes during that time. So you can always use it. Then the most difficult time in the summer is August 23rd to September 5. Because at that time we have Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. That's a lot of retrograde. So definitely go on vacation, avoid arguments, and if you vacation, just be careful with your partnerships and all that. It's just a time to be forgiving, to accept things. If you're making mistakes, to say to yourself, I know it's Mercury retrograde, it's Venus retrograde. I'm not going to be nasty to myself or to whoever is involved in this mistake. Just be more giving, more forgiving, more accepting. But overall, up until September 17, we do have that Mercury retrograde that starts in August 23rd. So after that, we're talking about the second part of September is actually flowing pretty well. But remember, we said August 14, 28, a time that things are moving really fast because of the eclipses, can be a little bit more difficult. And then we have November, which is kind of clean. December 13, we already have another Mercury retrograde. This year, 2023, if you noticed, started with Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde and ends with Mercury retrograde. So it's a very retro year. So that was the rundown of the major trends and what we have to work with in 2023.